Hey guys, so Cody, of course, writes the prologue to the book. He's the first person that we hear from when starting this book off. And that only makes sense because he's the king of everything that he sees. Everything he can see from his big high turtle throne, if you know what I mean, Dr. Seuss style.
Because
you just want to be their friend.
Yes.
When I found out that you were polygamous, then it's going to sound kind of weird, but I just kind of saw it as kind of a built-in way for you to be the center of attention all the time, which is exactly what you'd always been.
The first sentence that Cody writes is, I am sitting in a room off the grand ballroom in the Beverly Hills Hilton. I guess that really suits the kind of person that Cody was to become. Okay, so this is Cody's way of letting us know right from jump that he started at the bottom, now he's at the top. Like, he wants us to know that, like, he's living the life of the rich and famous, and he doesn't even know how he got here. Like, it's amazing. Wow, little old him. I mean, he deserves it, but, he's still humble, I guess. So the reason, of course, that he's at the Beverly Hills Hilton is because he's attending the Television Critics Association biannual press tour. Sounds so exciting. Yeah, but he's doing interviews for the show, and he's like really proud of himself for doing it. And he takes this moment to liken himself to the people that work for Greenpeace. He calls them Greenpeace Crusaders, and he says that they've devoted their lives to saving whales, and he's devoting his life to saving polygamy. He writes, like the Greenpeace activists on stage, I too am taking a stand. That's my dog digging at the floor. Spiegel. He also wants us to be aware that he's taking some time to sit in the hair and makeup chair. He grew up in a ranch in Wyoming, but now he's getting his hair and makeup done. I thought I'd never wear makeup. Sure. Let alone have a team of people apply it, just to make sure that I'm camera ready. The stylist asked me casually, so what's your show about? Oh, I say, it's about my family. I am a polygamist, and I have 4 wives. Well, guess what, guys? According to Cody, that stylist was heavily shocked. And this was his chance to educate her. Wow, it's amazing how unpretentious this prologue is. I'm so glad that Cody is really showing us the humble side of himself, Okay, so Cody goes on to list all of the ways he could potentially be in trouble and be devastating his family by exposing the fact that they're polygamists. And he just wants to reiterate to us that he's incredibly brave to come out and do this. He has 4 wives. He doesn't name them or talk about how brave they are, but for him, it's kind of he's doing the most, much like the Greenpeacers.
And maybe I assume too much, but that's kind of the way I saw it. Yeah. This is how I can always be the center of attention. How can you not be with 4 wives and 16 kids,
Shockingly, it turns out that his wives are also there with him. He doesn't mention them, except to say, I grasp my wife's hands in an informal prayer circle. We draw strength from one another and from our faith in God. We renew our commitment to our beliefs. I steady myself. The world is ready, I think, to finally hear our story, much like the whales. I drop my wife's hands, and we are called to the stage. He calls his marriages celestial plural marriages, and it isn't something that he ever took lightly or for granted. He never did. He feels like it's a calling and it's something that he's summoned to do by God, and he'll always do his best to be the best husband possible to all of his wives. He wants to let us know that religion by nature is elitist. I just love the way he writes this. Everyone wants to believe that his way is the right way. Too many people, regardless of their faith, are small-minded enough to imagine that their beliefs, their doctrines, and their rituals are the only way to be saved or to know God. I'm not self-centered enough to entertain these thoughts. This is the one thing I can really get behind. I like what he has to say here. He's basically saying we accept other people, and I hope you can accept us. And that's my dog playing with his extremely loud toy, even though he has 5,000 completely silent toys that he could be playing with at this moment. I'm so sorry. He does say, I don't believe what's appropriate for one person is necessarily appropriate for all. He's recognizing that. And he says, like, it's my principle and my calling to live this way. And when it's not yours, I'm fine with that. So he's continuing to make the argument that, he should be allowed to live his life. He should have the freedom, and his wife should have the freedom to live plural marriage if they so choose. And he's not telling us we can't live our lives the way we want to live them. But don't forget, guys, that the demands on a plural family are just like far greater than any other like monogamous couple or family. And that's something that he's had to deal with extremely bravely over the last many years. He says the important thing about plural marriage is that you have to get rid of any selfishness. Like, you can't live that way. You really have to put others before yourself. And that's a big part of living the principle. It's so interesting to hear Kody in this book versus how he's actually living his life alone in the Flagstaff mega mansion, ignoring all of his children, versus the Kody that says there's no room for ego in plural marriage. Kody writes, I know people probably misinterpret what I do. They probably think I'm wife hoarding, that I'm satisfying my carnality at the expense of my wife's feelings. I know. Spookly! I put that toy in the other damn room for him to play with, and he got it and carried it back in here to play with it at my feet. I'm so sorry. I have no other time and no other way to do this, so we're just gonna go forward. Spooks! Come on, use the other toy, please. Oh my God. All right, let's take a break until and he usually never plays with this toy. So what the F? All right, guys, let's take a break until he's done with this. Okay, my dog has finally gone back to sleep, so we can just go through quickly the rest of the points in this prologue. Okay, Kody wants us to know that each of the wives, they came into the family of their own volition. They asked him. They sought him out, and who wouldn't? Let's be honest. He says that he loves each of his wives wholly, but it's not easy. It's not easy to be passionate and love everyone eternally. But he's telling the truth when he says that he does. Everything is meant to be, and it's worked out just perfectly for him. Kody writes, loving them is simple. It's like breathing, waking up in the morning, putting one foot in front of the other. It's one of those things you do unconsciously, something so deeply ingrained in your psyche and your way of being that you never question it. I don't know, that just hit me. Okay. Yes, loving his wives is easy for Kody. Wait until you hear this part. Kody likens how he loves his wives to how a mother gives birth to children and loves her children. Okay, it's hard to explain how I love my wives to someone who is not inside the principle. The simplest analogy is of a mother who is pregnant with her second child and worries that she will not love this one as much as she loved her first. It's an honest fear, but on the day that her new baby is finally born, she loves it just as much as the firstborn. You guys, just like that. She loves it independently of her firstborn. She loves both of her children because they are her children, but she loves them individually for their different qualities. So Janelle, Christine, and Robin, they're just as much loved as Kody's firstborn. So that's good to hear. And he also lets us know that he has different reasons for loving each of his wives because they have different passions and talents. Some of them are just better at bringing money in than others. And, they get ranked accordingly. He wants us to be aware that no one wife could really fulfill all of his needs. So this type of lifestyle is essential for him to be happy. He writes, to be honest, I'm not sure if any one of my wives could fulfill all of my needs, nor do I believe that I am fulfilling all of theirs. Janelle and I can talk business. With Christine, I can go with Christine. I can enjoy the lightness of being together. With Mary, the world is structured and organized. Her house is peaceful and in order. When Robin came into the family, she brought an emotional honesty that required me to start dealing with things that I'd avoided. And so, therefore, I love each of them in their own special, unique way. When it comes to taking on a new wife, Cody, he just requires that special spiritual connection, and that's why he's chosen each of his wives. Of course, now we're getting a different story about that, but in this book, that's what he has to say. He does say that he asks permission of his wives if they can start courting, and they are usually the ones that have to ask him in the first place, let him know that they're interested in him before he'll even go to the courting process. But just be aware that family always comes first for Cody. It's written right here. Family first, above courting a new wife. Right. He's also really tired of people always asking him questions about sex. That's not what their relationship is about. And I mean, he's being really honest here when he says what their relationship really is about is financial needs. He says, one of our biggest struggles have been financial. There have been lean times. It took me longer than I'd hoped to establish myself in a career, especially with wives to support. Of course, all of my income goes to the family. I try my best to allocate money evenly and according to who needs it most. If a wife needs a bigger car because she's expecting a new child, I prioritize that. If another wife needs help completing a major home repair, this takes precedent over something more trivial. And when you have a wife who's really succeeding in LuLaRoe, the most important thing is to hold on to them, no matter what, no matter how badly you may treat them, you want to guilt them as much as possible so that their income continues to support everyone else. Cody writes, I want to stress that equality and fairness are our guiding principles. Since there is only one of me and 4 of them, I'm often considered the patriarch. Unfortunately, this word has acquired a negative connotation these days. I don't know why. I'm appealed to on a regular basis simply because I'm the common denominator. I'm the basic element that my wives and children share. Everything does revolve completely around him, and he's set it up to always be that way. He lets us know he's the father to all the children and the husband to all of the wives, and he never makes unilateral decisions. If asked, I will choose the direction in which the train runs, but my wives are the ones who keep it on track and running. They are the force behind our family. So basically, the entire point of this prologue is coming down to the fact that Cody wants us to know he's being really brave about stepping out onto stage and letting everyone know that he's living polygamy and that it's okay and people should be free to do so. He no longer wants himself, his wives, or his children to live in fear. He only wants them to be cast aside and ostracized forever so that he can live in a big mansion on the hill with Robin in Arizona. But, no fear of having to be ostracized because of polygamy. So that's good. And he ends the prologue with, suddenly, the audience begins to clap. I feel the atmosphere begin to warm. I sense that they're drawn to us. I think they are ready to hear our story. All right, time to talk about Cody's early life on that ranch in Utah. Let's get into it.
Guys, as soon as everybody finishes, hurry, we're going to write memories of Grandpa or poetry, and we're going to go read him at his grave, okay?
So this is my letter to my dad. It's weird. Little things that made me bitter about my dad when I was a child.
Cody was raised in the conventional LDS faith. Both of his parents, he says, were devout Mormons.
I was big on being an athlete. I wanted the accolades, but my dad liked me working on the ranch. For the time I was 8 years old, I was always whining about being cold.
But then, when he was 14 years old, so a little bit older, he says that his mother pulled him aside and explained to him that there's a very important, fundamental doctrine about polygamy. And she and his father have decided, it's so important that they're gonna have to start living it now.
When we were driving cattle, sometimes it was 28 degrees below zero. I just remember half of my life growing up just being freezing cold.
She called this celestial plural marriage, and it was extremely important to their spiritual afterlife that they participate in bringing another woman into the family.
I lettered as a freshman in high school wrestling. For my birthday, I got a box from the same store that we used to buy our Letterman's jackets in our small town, and I'm like, hallelujah.
Now, Cody, He states that he was young and stubborn, and so he battled hard against like the idea that he should take on more than one wife. He fought a long and hard battle of trying to be like, no, wait, stop, can't do it. Okay.
And I open it up, and it's coveralls. Oh, gosh. It kind of broke my heart. It made me bitter.
Yeah, but he fought hard against it. And he said that in the LDS church that he had really grown up in until he was 14, there was no option to explore plural marriage. It wasn't done and it was frowned upon. So for him, he kind of looked at his parents and was like, this sounds a little bit crazy, but also like, yes, let's do it. So then, when he was 19 years old, he was finally sent on his LDS mission to southern Texas. I just know a lot of missionaries living abroad, and they're all, living in these foreign countries. So it's interesting that for him, his mission was in Texas. He spent 2 years down there talking to people about the Mormon church, and the doctrine of plural marriage was never allowed to be discussed, but it was weighing heavily in the back of his mind. He says that it called to him. He literally writes, "It called to me, but I still had no idea what to do with this summons." While he was away in Texas, he received a letter from his parents letting him know that they had been excommunicated from the LDS church for living celestial marriage. And he literally writes, "Well, this is interesting." That's what he thought when they were excommunicated from the church. But he goes on to write, "But I was still too hard-headed to see it as a sign that I should follow it in their footsteps." Why would that be a sign? Like, that would make you think like, oh man, yeah, God's telling me they've been excommunicated from the church, so God definitely wants me to take on more than one wife. I don't understand. But Cody's reasoning back then didn't make any sense, like today. I mean, he's always been Cody, right? Okay. So his parents are excommunicated from the Mormon church, and he says that it broke his heart. But like, he should have known that that was God telling him to go into fundamentalism. And he continued his mission work, finishing out the 2 years in very dangerous territory in Texas, I guess. And by the time he returned home, his father had finally taken on his second wife. Cody's mother had written him dozens of letters about how wonderful this woman was and how excited she was about all of this. Probably, I'm going to tell you what I really think, probably because her husband would not leave her alone. Like, I can see this in myself. They're getting older, like their kids are growing up, and she just wants to like wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and like sit calmly, maybe go for a walk. And he's like, can we go like to the bedroom and spend some time with each other? Like, I'm still needing a little something from you. Like, he could not calm himself down. And so she was finally like, you know what would be great? If we enter plural marriage and someone comes along who can spend time with you so that I can be alone for 5 goddamn seconds. Like, that's probably why she would be so excited. There's no other reason I can think that it would be fun for her. So Cody says that because his mom was like so positive about the woman, by the time Cody arrived home, he was fully ready and willing to embrace her. He gave her a lot of respect and love because his father had married her, and like, that's what's required. When your father does something, you just bow down to him. And so he ended up really liking. Now for him, Cody says this was a really good arrangement. And, while he was home, he had just returned from his mission, he realized that there was like a lot of warmth and love among his father, his mother, and this new wife. And things were working out really well for them on the ranch, like all alone out there, with mom now being able to have her coffee to herself. She was a lot happier. He considers his second mother like a real mother to him. And he says it was an easy and wonderful evolution. And just like, he had a lot of good feelings about everything that happened. And he started to consider converting, to this more fundamentalist faith. And he really credits his parents for that. He ends this chapter by writing this. "Then I met a girl named Mary, and that changed everything." All right, guys, we're going to take a break here. The next chapter is all about Cody's view of, the time that he met Mary and how they ended up courting. We've already gone through Mary's perception of it, and that was hilarious. So let's see what Cody has to say next time. Thanks for being here with me tonight. I hope you'll join me again as we head down yet another rabbit hole.